Hey guys, and welcome back to the Autonomy podcast. Today, we are with a client, Tiffany, who's going to talk about her journey on the autonomy spectrum, and going through the journey and the things that she's learned throughout this process, and also just some really useful tidbits for people that are maybe looking for a way to find what their real drive towards getting in better shape is, and what that means for the short term, maybe some conquering some different beliefs, and then what that means for the long term when it comes to staying in shape for life. So, hey Tiff, how's it going?
Hey Nate, doing well. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
No worries, thank you. I really appreciate it. So, just before people, we get into the nitty and gritty of the amazing changes that you've made. Do you want to give people a bit of a background on who you are, what you've done before, maybe how you heard about us, and then we can take it from there. Really, I'm trying to make sure that people don't see that you're a fitness professional or someone that is like a quote unquote robot. So we want to hear a little bit about your background.
Okay, no problem. So I am from California, born and raised in the Bay Area. I found out about Nathan through a surgeon that I was having surgery with last year for my feet. He is a world-renowned doctor, so he went through the same process, and he had Nathan as a fitness coach. And I got really close to this surgeon through the months and weeks preparing for my surgery. And from there, he mentioned, I told him that I was looking to fulfill one of my goals that I've been wanting to fulfill for a very, very long time, but haven't been able to achieve it through other means. I tried to achieve it by myself. I tried to hire a couple of personal trainers, both at the gym and also outside, and I wasn't able to achieve it. So I want to give it another shot. And he spoke highly of Nathan, and I decided, hey, why not? And the rest was pretty much history from there.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. Always one of the biggest things is always the referral process of who you normally come through when it comes to like getting amazing results. Often kind of dictates your level of perception. So when you came into the journey, what were those specific tangible goals that you kind of wanted to achieve?
The things I want to achieve was a really nice stomach, as in abs or ab definition. It is something that I have been striving for a very long time. I have always been very active throughout college. People would joke around and be like, "Where's Tiffany?" Because she's not around, and they would joke and say, "Oh, she's at the gym." But for whatever reason, I couldn't achieve the results. And I think a lot of it has to do with diet that people don't really think about, and just the workouts that I was doing was very intense. I was lifting a lot back then, not as strong as I am now, obviously, but I was lifting a lot back then. But the nutrition part wasn't there. And I think that had a lot to do with me not being able to achieve it back then.
Mm. Yeah. What type of nutrition were you having when you were going to the gym before you started autonomy?
I was pretty much eating very healthy. There was always, each meal had protein, carbs, and a side of veggies. But I guess the portion control is something that I didn't know about until I worked with you. I was just kind of eating based on what made me fill up and what made me full, and wasn't really considering calories in versus calories out.
Yeah. It's a really a lot of people, which is absolutely fantastic. They opt for the healthy style of diet, which hopefully they normally get a good dose of information from somewhere, whether it's the protein, the veggies. Thinking about the healthy choice at all points generally moves away from the burger and chips at all points, or the pizzas or the takeaways. So for the most part, if a lot of people looked at you when they started, they'd be like, oh, well, why did she want to get in better shape, right? Because you're already quite a slender female, but like you said, you wanted to get that ab definition and see what you could do on that front. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at those, like what happened when we started to work together? What was the big like learnings and takeaways in those first initial weeks when we were dieting, that you could probably pass on to other listeners?
Wow. It was definitely a life-changing experience for sure, the dieting phase. I think that would probably, I would say, is the hardest phase out of all the phases. I mean, I'm currently in the building phase right now, but it's just a mental game, honestly. There's a certain psychology behind being in a diet, and I hear people being on yo-yo diets. They go in, go out, they end up gaining weight more, or they end up, you know, getting really sick from being under eating for quite a long time. And I think you need a certain sort of perseverance when it comes to dieting, and also knowing how bad you want it. Like the reason why I was able to fulfill and get out of the diet phase and achieve what I want, is because this was something that I was strived for a very long time, and I said, "This is it. Like I have to achieve this, or it means nothing, right?" So
Yeah.
I even created a vision board for myself that I post next to my wall, and I look at it every single day. And I said, "This is something I want to achieve this year, and I'm going to go out and get it."
Mm.
So I think it has a lot to do with perseverance and how bad you really want it, and that's the biggest advice I would give to someone going through that diet phase, because it definitely isn't easy. I have to tell you, you know, I'm a huge working professional. I run the sales team in our company, and you know, with that is a lot of gruesome hours. So you know, I would start work at around 7 a.m. I would end work around 7 a.m. So I work a long shift. But not just that, you know, I had to fit in, you know, the requirements needed for the dieting phase to be able to meet my goals. So with that being said, I was up till midnight every single night because I wanted it that bad. And that's the biggest thing I would, you know, give someone, that if you want something, you'll make time for it, like I did every single day. And I was in the dieting phase for a couple months from it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like as much as like we can put sunshines and roses on the dieting phase, or like you said, it's a huge commitment. It's a huge effort on all parts, mental, physically, probably emotionally as well. And it's a large change for especially if you like you do live with a family, and you want to be around those individuals at the same time, and you want to work very productively. It's one of those where it probably does add some layer of difficulty to your day to kind of add more things on top of an already busy lifestyle. But being able to then do that because you feel the goal is worth it is often the determining factor between someone doing that and probably not achieving where they want to.
Exactly. I think a lot of times people tend to give up when the going gets hard, right? When
Mhm.
people are uncomfortable. So what I have learned through my life and just through my journey in my personal life, along with my professional life, is sometimes you need to be uncomfortable because that's how you grow. And there were times, I'm not going to lie, and during the dieting phase where I'm like, I can't do this. I can't hit this many steps. I can't run this much. You know, I can't lift an extra day, but I kept pushing because I really wanted it, and I wanted to hit that goal really bad.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Can we talk about the so when we first started working together, and we had that call at the beginning, we set some numbers for your scale weight, and they were something that maybe tested your perception of where you might have ended up at the beginning, right? Like everyone's got a specific scale weight, whether it's subconscious or conscious, that they wanted to probably not go below for some specific reason. Can you just talk on that specific subject? I know that we spoke about it, and you did go below a number in which you thought that was possible. Can you just talk on that whole mindset of it?
Yes. So I think starting with you, I think I weighed in around 110, 115, or somewhere around that ballpark. And you mentioned for me to be able to, you know, get the six pack, which was my goal at that time. I would have to drop, you know, quite a few pounds to be in the 90-97 range. To me, that was very shocking, because, you know, usually from what you hear from outside news, you know, when someone is in that 90s range, especially for someone my height, who is around 5'6" and slender, you know, the first feeling that comes into your mind is fear. And, oh, you know, 97 will make me look very skinny and maybe anorexic, right? So The fact that when you mentioned that for us to hit our goal, I had to be down that weight, I was kind of worried because usually for someone my weight, what people quote unquote consider healthy was you have to be over 100 pounds, like 110, 115, 117, and so forth.
Yeah, and it's often a big limiting factor. And just for the listeners, what was your lowest weight that we got to?
We got to 94 pounds.
Yeah, yeah. And at that point, we were still in all honesty, we were still in that phase where we were like, we didn't get the thing that you wanted or you were envisioning per se, right?
Yeah, my vision of what a six pack was is I kind of derived it from what I saw online. I think social media made my perception of what I thought a six pack should look like. Now, I'm not thinking of a six pack as in like, like bodybuilder six pack, right? Like I'm thinking about those girls who, look some, healthy, have some meat on them, and yet they still have really nice abs. And just being like looked at all the time, on social media with that, type of person that I see all the time, it makes you want that, right? So, um, being said, that's the look I was wanting to go for. And, when we got to 94 pounds, I didn't achieve, that particular look. But of course, I didn't realize that there was so much sacrifices health wise that I would have to endure if I did want that with someone my type of body weight and how I'm built.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, and for the listeners, like when you got to 94 and 95 and maybe where you are right now, are you happy with the way that you look?
I am very happy because I realized at that point that it didn't matter what I saw on Instagram, it's all, a lot of it is photoshopped, first of all. People put pictures here and there, but also along with that, I realized that do I want to sacrifice my health to go even lower than 94 pounds? Looking looking at it at this point, a couple months out and back then, I'm happy that I made the decision with you to stop at 94 pounds because it wasn't worth it. Because I realized that when people look at me at 94 pounds, they don't know I'm 94 pounds, but also to them, I look amazing, right? And it comes a point where you realize, like, this is what I'm happy with, and this is what I can take. I have abs, I look very defined, but I don't have that six pack, right? That you see, quote unquote, on Instagram. But regardless, I am super happy with how it turned out and really happy with what we're doing right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm personally, so glad that we're in this position, and it's unfortunately it's quite uncommon to find someone that changes their perception so quickly. We're in a dieting phase for a short space of time, in relative to potentially what other people would need to get to the way that you look, just simply because of what your starting position wasn't too overweight. And a lot of people will make those mistakes of pushing for less, because that's what they deem as the thing that you need to do in order to be happy with the way that you look. And I'm glad that we're in the position of where less in your mind, and definitely mine, is lower is not always better, especially if those then compromise those health risks of potentially loss of menstrual cycle, loss of body confidence, looking for more and more and more. Sometimes more is, that element of drive towards more, and which is a human nature trait which we can't really avoid. It gets manifested massively within this diet culture, um, and we want to make sure that for all clients that are getting to that quote unquote body that they want, it's not at the sacrifice of all of those other things. So now we're in a position that you're happy with the way that you look, and you've achieved a very very desirable physique. Like I say to you quite a few times, I'm like, the way that you look would be desirable by 99% of the population, and that you should be super super proud of yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate Nathan. I mean, it's been a mind-changing experience, honestly. I really advise anyone listening to this podcast, if you really want to make a difference in, your life and your health, I highly recommend this. And I'm not just saying that. It has changed me for the better. It has, made me a better person in the terms of my self-confidence. It has bleeded into my professional life and just overall. It has given me a confidence boost. It just gave me a better outlook ever since I joined Autonomy. So it's not just the health benefits that you get from this, but also not you get the physique. You feel healthier. Like I have so much energy now compared to before. Like, and along with that, my skin has been the clearest it has ever been. I never used to have clear skin, and it just happens to be like maybe it's a correlation of me working out a lot, not really stressing out because I'm working out so much. I don't know what it is, but everything just seems to align ever since I started Autonomy. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity.
Thank you. And they often do bleed into one another, and I don't think anything is ever, specific or like boundaried up so high in our worlds, and that they don't actually then correlate. Like even if you have a really good professional life and you're in a really good place on that side of things, normally that then bleeds into your physical life too. And alternatively, if things are not going particularly well in one area of your life, whether it's emotional, physical, work related, professional, they end up do manifest and try and go between the lines per se, and they bleed into each other. So it's really, really good to see that you're utilizing these things that you've gained in all areas. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So now talk us through this process now of where you're now in a quote unquote building phase, or what we call like just like a muscle building, or like long term phase. What is the differences from maybe nutritionally, from training side of things, that now is more on your radar than these elusive abs that you once focused on?
So I can speak on myself. Now, I'm not sure for the other population in terms of, the type of changes you may go through and
Mhm.
how you feel. I think everyone is a bit different, but in speaking about me, I'm really enjoying this muscle building phase because in my free time, I love to cook and I love to create recipes. I used to not be a really good cook, but that was also something that I want to change in my life. For people that are watching this, they would have not known that because based on what they see on Instagram, it's a girl that is making amazing recipes every single weekend.
Mhm.
Um, so that was something that I wanted to change in my life. And with this muscle building phase, it allowed me to learn a lot about the types of food that I can put into my diet. It wasn't as strict as what I had in the dieting phase, right? Because with dieting, you have to like follow exactly what Nathan puts out there, since he's my coach. But with the muscle building phase, the types of food that I get to eat is more of things that I can work with. If I'm craving, let's say, pancakes, I now know how to work it in my diet. If I want to create a cool pasta recipe, I know how to work it in my diet. So this is definitely a phase that I am enjoying because not only do I get to enjoy the type of foods I can eat and put into my overall calorie intake, but also it's just more sustainable. And I don't know how any girl honestly can be in the dieting or in that app phase for a very long time because it doesn't seem like a very happy lifestyle.
Mm.
Like part of life is too short, and I think a lot of it you should enjoy, right? And of course enjoy, but also be mindful of like what you're eating, not just enjoy and eat everything, but this is more sustainable where I can go out with my friends. And if I know, what I'm eating and I'm planning it ahead of time, I can enjoy that meal and not have to have this constant worry about being on such a strict diet in the dieting phase.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a continuum that we see as a really successful one, which is During the dieting phase, you want to get it over and done as much as fast as possible, as done and dusted. Like you said, it's not a enjoyable place to be. Your energy is going to be particularly lower. Your appetite's going to be higher because you are effectively, dieting is effectively controlled starvation, where you're eating less so that your body, burns its own fat sources. And during that dieting phase, a lot of people make the mistake of being a bit too more liberal with their food choices. We've been back and forth about how when we've changed our strategy coming into this, lifestyle phase, this muscle building phase, you're now learning about the foods that may not be the best for hunger, or the foods that make you feel better. But during the dieting phase, you want to minimize that type of exposure so that you don't end up, wasting weeks, or you're wasting months by, having that trial and error to where you are, saying that, oh, I chose this food source, or I had this, and I tried to fit it in my calories, and I ended up being really hungry, so I overate. During that dieting phase, you want to kind of learn about structure and routine and navigating hunger. And when you do those specific things in that specific phase, I think it translates over massively now into where you are.
Yeah, totally agree. Yep. I think you have to definitely go through the diet phase to appreciate the muscle building phase for sure.
Yeah. So like now that we're into this phase and you're creating these recipes, talk us through the process that you're now going under from a tracking perspective and getting to know food a little bit more. Like how's that process been?
I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning, it was quite confusing. I was a bit flustered, wasn't sure how to use my Fitness Pal. It was something that I wanted to learn how to use for quite a long time, but for those that have been in the fitness space for a long time, they know how to use it extremely, extremely well. And I wanted to get to that point, and I was just kind of starting off. I was like, there's so many recipes I want to make, I want to fit into one day, but I'm not thinking about it long term, as in like, oh, this is something I can use for the rest of my life. And I was just trying to figure out, what do I want to cook? What do I want to make? How is this going to fit in my calories? So it was a bit of a flustering moment for a few days, but then I think thanks to your help, you kind of set me in the right path, and said, hey Tiff, like, this is a long-term thing. Just take it one step at a time. Just whatever you enjoy, like one meal, just add it in slowly. And so it took some time for me to get used to, but I think I got used to it within a week or so after playing around with it. And of course, each week I'm learning a bit more and more from my Pal. But pretty much I send over in the week, I send over what I plan to eat on the weekends, since that is where my highest calorie intakes are. So based on what I send over to you, you then approve it and let me know if it's good. But that's how I pretty much play around and track and make sure that I'm in calorie for what I want to eat for that weekend.
Yeah. I think it's a really good strategy for now for where you are in the journey to kind of get some flexibility, like and be able to be creative with those food choices. But all the stuff, the processes that you learned within the dieting phase, the structure, the routine, maybe thinking less about food in the week, has probably allowed you to then enjoy food more at the weekend, but also put yourself in a scenario where during the week you're very much automatic, so that you can focus on other things as apart from food. So you can, be the best performing, worker that you can be, or best performing, friend, or, family member, without that need to be like, oh, what am I going to eat on a Tuesday night? Or what am I going to eat on a Thursday night? Or how do I fit this in on a Friday morning? You're able to now go, okay, well, most of my flexibility is at the weekend. So Monday to Friday, business as usual. And then that's when you do have mostly the social events. It's when you do have most of the time to be able to put towards those recipes.
Yes, I mean, I love the structure that you set up for me, Nathan, because I feel like a lot of personal trainers don't think like that. The fact that you knew that I'm a very busy working professional, and just everything goes automatic. So I meal prep everything from Monday through Friday, and then Saturday, Sundays where my calories are the most highest, and I can go out and enjoy, or make recipes that I really love to cook because of the free time that I have. But I think having the structure is just really important for those listening, because oftentimes if you're very busy with work, you have kids, you have things to deal with on the weekdays. And if you don't have like an automatic control where you can just kind of go to your refrigerator and just know exactly what to eat and at what time, then you're going to have more of those cravings and you're going to start thinking, oh, like maybe I should go out and get food. I'm too lazy to cook tonight. And that's when people fall into the trap. And that's why, people overall gain weight when they don't want to. So the schedule that you definitely put on me is definitely works with my schedule. And for anyone that is also busy as I am.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we really, really believe that a fundamental part of like your mental health and also your physical health comes down to the boundaries, the rules, the structure, and the routines that you place upon yourself. And almost as a busy professional, you are pigeoned down this hole of needing to be efficient for the most part in these times. And if you're then going to add more thoughts, more impulses, more headspace occupied, then that's going to not put you always in a better routine. Often people think more choices is better, but actually, there is a thing called decision fatigue, in which you have too many things to think about and you end up doing none of them and just go for the easiest option. And sometimes the easiest option is Deliveroo or Uber Eats or whatever your family members have cooked. But we don't want that if we are looking at creating a lifestyle, because you want to have, you need to be firm when you need to be firm, but you also need to be free when you need to be free. And that, I think that blend there is ultimately probably a key fundamental in not just your, but everyone's lifestyle optimization.
Yep, definitely agree.
Yeah. So when you are now looking at going at social events, talk the listeners through what is it that's going through your thought process when we're going to weddings or going to these, the one that, let's say, for example, the one that you had last week or the week before with the Vietnamese style wedding. What type of thought processes are going through your head when you're coming to those times?
Before Autonomy or after
Yeah,
Autonomy?
go with both.
Before Autonomy, let's say if I were trying to reach my quote unquote goals, I wouldn't know what to do, to be honest. I mean, in my head, I would try to portion things out, but what does that really mean if you don't have an idea or some kind of reference to kind of frame from, right? So I think I would just be over calories no matter what. Even though I tell myself, oh, just have a little bit of this, have a little bit of that with Vietnamese weddings. And for those that are watching this, Vietnamese weddings, it's like an elaborate buffet style where, the platters get served one by one and there's 10 entrees. I kid you not. So it's really hard for an individual to know exactly, without the right knowledge, to know exactly how to portion control during wedding times, for Vietnamese weddings at least. After working with Nathan, I realized about the one plate rule and what that really means, and knowing how to structure and just planning ahead of time, because I already know what Vietnamese weddings are like and what type of food is primarily served. I already prepared myself with Nathan for about 2 weeks before the wedding actually happened. So by the time the wedding rolled around, I knew exactly what I was going to eat. I knew exactly how much to eat, and I knew how to portion control so that I can stay within calorie intake.
Yeah, I really love the one plate rule as a good strategy. Like for the most part, like so actually later down the line, that will escalate into kind of identifying what you really want from that scenario, what it is that you really enjoy. But for now, having that, it's not a restriction, but we call it a boundary with the food intake, because like you said, is that if you don't have any boundaries and your normal thought process, I'm going to eat healthy, but I'm just going to like pick at these things, or I'm going to try and make the best decision. Like you said, there's no real way knowing if that is actually the real right thing to do. So having something where the boundaries are firmly in place, where you can say, okay, I'm going to have one plate of this food that I can really enjoy, and whatever's on this plate is the portion itself. I think it's a really just a good strategy for most people if you're looking at how to manage the Indian weddings or manage a buffet, or you want to go to a restaurant that isn't particularly your favorite one, but you're going because your friends are going. How do you get something that will be a balance between your goals and your lifestyle is just picking a main or picking one dish, and that kind of regulates a lot of the back and forth work already before you even start. So I think that's a really important strategy that can be utilized very, very often.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, when we're looking at training now, because this is, you've really got into, you've always been into your training, but now I think we've hit this new gear. When you started or before you started, you were always kind of getting some way, shape, or form, some pain from training. Like you mentioned about how for some part you train for a bit and then your back would hurt. Where is that now?
Yeah, you pretty much changed the game for me. I don't have any back pain anymore, and Tiffany back then, would be shocked at Tiffany now. When I lift, I have zero back pain, and it's kind of crazy because you would think that for someone to help fix back pain, they would have to be physically there with you. But Nathan is in Dubai right now, living there, and I'm in California, and yet we're still able to make it work. And just a constant communication and how I communicate with him on a weekly basis, he pretty much changed it for me. I don't have any back pain anymore when I lift, regardless if I'm hitting PBs every single week. The more weight that I lift, I still don't have any back pain.
So what did we do? Like, what were the big crux in your ability to not have back pain anymore?
So working with you, I have to send you weekly videos of my forms. I didn't realize how important this was, not only for myself to improve on the way that I perform particular exercises, but also having you helped correct me with your knowledge on how I was standing or how I was lifting a particular dumbbell or whatever. And then you're able to pinpoint exactly why I was having that back pain. And through the constant, looking at the videos continuously on repeat, hearing your feedback, I was able to improve. And that's what solved my back pain.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. And that's, you know, it's often the way where people think, oh no, you need to be there hands on, or you need to, be correcting people. And often quite the way is that, some personal trainers just don't know enough to be able to pinpoint those having worked with coaches and work with coaches a lot. Some people just don't know what they're looking at when it comes to changing those positions. We didn't change that much, to be honest. We just changed. Sometimes you go down too far on some of your exercises. Some of the times that you would, go down too fast, and they're the real major crux. If you slow things down and you maintain form, a lot of problems go away very, very quickly, which is great. From a training perspective now, how have you been able to cultivate these next goals? Are you out of the dieting phase, which is for most people that's like their pierre de la resistance. They've never even thought about it, what life is like afterwards. But what is it that drives you forwards now?
What drives me forward now is I want to be able to continuously build my muscle and gain a few extra pounds, but still retain my physique. I think what really drives me now is me wanting to beat my personal best. I have to admit, ever since I started with you, I never hit such high PBs before in my entire life, like ever. I pretty much am able to hit either a new rep every single week or adding on more weights to the exercises every 2 weeks, whatever it may be, leg workout, arm workouts. For example, I mean, in my deadlifts, I'm almost to the 300 club. And someone that would look at me with my body weight would be like, how the heck does someone like her lift that much? Um, so I think me going and chasing these goals of like, I want to not only continue my form so that I can be perfect with the increase in weights, but also hitting my personal best to increase my weights continuously.
Yeah, they're fundamental. And how has that changed? Probably has it, or if it does, let me expand on it. How has that changed your potential viewpoint on your initial goals at the beginning of wanting to have these abs? where does these now rank in terms of your order of importance?
Well, since I got the abs now, I would say this muscle building phase and wanting to beat my personal best in terms of more reps or higher weights. I think I would rate it as number one. Because now I'm really chasing that goal. Since I already got the physique that I want, I definitely want to put on more muscle and look more fuller per se at this current journey in my life. And I know that we're recording this during summertime, where a lot of girls just want to cut, but for me, I'm really focused on being able to muscle build at this point.
Yeah, and just talk on, what has happened to your physique since being that 94 pound, 95 pound lady. Like, where do you sit now, in terms of body weight as we move up into this muscle building phase?
I think right now I know that weight fluctuates, a little bit every single week. I think I'm in the 98, 99 pound, which is pretty good from where we ended out from the dieting phase. And believe it or not, I feel like I look even more leaner
Mhm.
now compared to when I was at 94 pounds in the dieting phase. I think I just look better. And I don't even know how that is even possible, but I definitely look more leaner and my abs are still there. And I think it might be even more defined at this point.
Yeah, yeah. It's often a lovely phenomenon, like when a lot of people think lower is better, lower is more defined, but what you've done is you've come out of the diet really, really effectively, and you've combined that level of leanness that you got to with 95, and then you've just added this layer of like fullness from the training, but you're using that training now to fuel this existential muscle building phase, which is changing the way that you look. And we do see that, unfortunately, people go down two routes, which is one is the where you execute the reverse diet and the muscle building phase initially very, very well. You steadily bring up calories, you start the whole method of like adding more variety in, but you're staying within that calorie range. And then you then get the benefits of coming out very slowly, which end up being, oh wow, I'm still really lean, or as lean as I was. Plus, I've got all of these like the glycogen, the fullness from the sugars and the food being in the muscle. You end up creating a different illusion in the way that your physique looks initially from the short term anyway. Or unfortunately, people go down the route of maybe being a bit too liberal with their food intake when they first get out of the diet, because they don't know how to be of balance or maintenance with their calorie intake, that they end up just gaining a bit too fast, that they skip this whole phase altogether. So being able to do this is obviously is now showing you that sometimes lower is not always better.
Yep. And I wouldn't have known that if, like, I wouldn't trust anyone that said that to me. I think you have to go through it to really believe it. So, for anyone listening, it definitely is true. Lower isn't always better. I mean, I'm at the highest energy I am performing right now. My cravings isn't as crazy as when it was in the dieting phase. It's definitely more manageable, and just being able to eat, different types of food and knowing how to work it in my calorie intake is definitely something that is definitely more sustainable in the long term. And again, this isn't something that you just do temporarily. Like, you have to love the process. You have to love this and the new change and the new life that this will, you know, derive from for you.
Yeah, yeah. That's a large point. Very, very big point. When people do end up wanting to go back to where they were before, because of maybe the enjoyment of not really caring about food or wanting to fit back into their old lifestyle. But unfortunately, normally your old lifestyle was a large contributing factor to where you were. And some people, let's say for example, not you per se, because you were slender to start with, but if you're going to start in over 200 pounds, or you start in like 100 kilos, the habits that you got there were there for because you were 100 kilos, not because they were 60 kilo habits, but you're just making some wrong choices. They were just, that's how you lived. So going back there is only ever going to result in one thing, and that is being back at that 100 kilo marker or be 200 pounds. So what type of habits are you going to keep that you didn't have before, that now you can now keep as part of your quote unquote new lifestyle?
Just knowing that where I started before, believe it or not, I wasn't fully happy, and just always thinking back to that moment will allow me to not ever reverse back. And also the benefits that I have gotten from um, being going through all these different phases with you, I think that it just helped me overall flourish in my professional life, in my personal life, how I look, my confidence, just knowing and remembering these things in the back of my head and having that self-awareness is just what's going to continue driving me to realize that this is a lifestyle that I want, and I've been wanting it for a very long time. And why would I throw away something that I worked really hard for, especially since I want it so bad?
Yeah, no, there's some really good fundamentals. And then when we now look back at training, when you're doing your exercises, because this is a big, I think this is a big one, especially for ladies, is that what are you thinking about during your sets? What are you thinking about during your workouts that are, improving you week on week? There's a lot down to training that come down to mindset around about just, going and showing up. But what are you thinking about in your sets?
I am thinking solely on muscle to mind connection, making sure that my form is correct when I'm at the gym, or, we have built a personal gym at this point due to COVID, but when I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone. Like I'm not thinking about work. It's just me, stress in the day. I let it out through my workouts. So I just am focused on making sure my form is correct and making sure that I am having tension on my muscles along with the mind and muscle connection. That's really important. I like to play music. I have AirPods I listen to, and if someone is talking to me, I wouldn't be able to know because I'm so in the zone. Um, for me, I'm not worried about growth. I think oftentimes girls are often worried about, like, if I lift heavier, will I look bulky? Will I get big? I don't have that worry. And I never had that worry ever since I've been lifting for quite a few years now. So that is probably what helps me be able to continuously kill it in my reps and at the gym.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In terms of logging your weight, and a lot of people don't really do this consistently. How important has that process of like reflecting on your numbers been on your ability to kind of get more the next time?
It allows me to know exactly where I am, and, if my weight's fluctuating, I know that there will be fluctuations within a week, right? It depends what you wake up, if you drink water, if you went to the bathroom, things like that. But just being able to track it on a day-to-day basis, honestly, allows me to know exactly, okay, where am I averaging right now for the week? Is it on target? Does anything seem off? Like, let's say I went over my calories or whatever over the weekend. I'm not saying it has happened, but let's say if I do for whatever reason, then seeing what my weight is for the next few days and seeing if it fluctuates, goes down to normal, it allows me to know exactly where I am ballpark and know exactly, okay, how am I going to manage the rest of the week in my intake.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. How did you deal with the daily fluctuations mentally?
Um, Now, since that we have gotten so low before, now when I see the weights increasing, I actually love it, because I already prepared for the worst, which we definitely got to in the low 90s. So now when I see the numbers increasing, I'm like, yes, this is what I want. Let's keep on increasing. But of course, not increasing like crazy, but over time, just steadily increasing, maybe a pound a month or so forth.
Yeah, no, the steady increase is really important, but also like getting those numbers daily just to see where you're at. Did you ever before maybe joining autonomy have a position of where you used to weigh yourself and freak out over the daily fluctuations, or have you ever been like that?
No, I never really had a relationship with the scale, to be honest. I think actually the most I ever weighed myself was when I started with you, just because I know we want to track it every on a daily basis. But back then, I wasn't someone that obsessed over my weight scale or anything. If anything, I was someone who wanted to gain a few extra pounds from where I was at before autonomy, but wasn't able to achieve it. Like my weight would fluctuate, it would be lower. So when I am on the weight now and I see an increase, I'm used to it because it's something that I want. Of course, keeping the physique that I have now, right? So never has been a problem for me, at least.
Yeah, that's great. That's actually a really good way to look at it. And if you can celebrate it going up and also celebrate it going down, then you'll be in a much better place mentally to deal with those if like it goes up randomly as body weights generally do. Um, in terms of like now moving forwards, how have you set the target? So you're training effectively, you're training efficiently, you're looking forward to your sets, and you're driving forwards and really doing some really great things in your training. But what is it that what within your sessions and in your thought processes is the biggest driver for you? What lifts are you trying to beat? What lifts are your most favorite? Talk us about like the love of the training side of things to improve those lifts.
One of my favorite, and this is something I mentioned to you in the very beginning, is whatever workouts you want me to do, please add in deadlifts and please add in squats. Deadlifts is one of my favorites for some reason. I'm not sure why. But I really like doing, or sorry, not deadlifts, hip thrusts is what I love to do, along with squats. So hip thrust is still one of my favorites. That's where I'm almost hitting 300 club. And then squats, I do love it because it helps you build a really nice booty. But at the same time, I always had this mental blockage that I could only lift so much. And I think working with you ever since for a couple months now, I think it helped me get out of that mindset and really break through. And ever since I broke through, I've been able to lift and add more weight slowly and steadily, which is something I couldn't do. I always had this mental barrier that if I lifted more, I wasn't able to finish the rep for whatever reason, or that I would feel pain in my back, or that, the weight would fall and crash down because I'm not able to go down and go back up. I always had this mental barrier with that particular exercise for some reason, but I'm able to hit a moment where I broke through from it and realized I can actually lift more than I thought I could.
Yeah, that's such a really nice thing to hear, and it's often a thing that, as a coach from my side, it's the one of the biggest fundamental things that it's hard to get someone to push through on their own. It's probably the biggest barrier of online coaching, and being able to form that. Like I mean, you said at the beginning that sometimes you have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions to really progress, right? And I think one of the big things that week on week people struggle to do is to find out their capacity. And I'm a big believer that a lot of people are way more powerful beyond their measures or their means that they perceive. As the old Coach Carter saying, isn't it? Where the guy turns up and does a massive speech about how you're powerful beyond measure. But I do believe that a lot of people do limit themselves, or from a mental perspective, because they believe that I'm not going to be able to do X, or if I don't get it up, then it's pointless. But you always have to try. You always have to try, because without trying and really seeing if you can, you're never going to know. And being able to go through this process where you are trying every week to see if you can beat it, that curiosity is now built in you to be like, I think maybe I got this. Like if I was able to do the one before, I was able to progress up from the 50 kilo hip thrust to the 55, then why can't I go from 55 to 60? Or why can't I go from 70 to 75? Or why can't I go from 100 to 105? And creating that curiosity with the training and being prepared to be a little bit uncomfortable in trialing that, I think it is a large reason why some people will gain muscle tissue, but also why some people won't be able to love training very much because they won't see progress.
Yeah, definitely. I think it also helps to have you keep me accountable because oftentimes we're in our heads and we talk ourselves out of doing things, right? A quote that someone once told me that I never forgot, and just having you there to tell me that, I'm stronger than what I think I can achieve. But the quote, if you're in your head, you're dead. And this also plays a big part in when you're training, that if you're in your head and you're thinking all these thoughts that you're not good enough, that you can't hit this particular weight, that you can't hit your best PB today, that you're tired, whatever it may be, if you're in your head, you're dead.
That's a cool quote. I like that. I think that really goes into anything really, mindset stuff, behaviors. I'm doing a lot of therapy stuff at the moment, and very much that is that we're not in the moment, right? We're not being present. We're actually just thinking future or thinking forwards, or what if this, or if that's going to happen, what if that, what if I fail. It's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, and when you can surpass that or move away from that, that's where things happen.
Definitely. Yeah. But just having that self awareness and knowing that you want to be better and that you are able to reflect on where you're at and realize what do you really want out of it. I think that's what really helps you be able to get to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reflection part is often it's something that you've done, you do anyway naturally, because that's what that type of person you are. But maybe this is probably the last question, but like, how often, like, whether when you're looking at your like your vision board, and you're looking at your day-to-day process, how often are you like reflecting, preparing, writing, to kind of settle those I don't want to call them nerves, but settle your headspace.
And this may sound crazy, especially with the type of schedule that I have, which you know very well, Nathan,
Mhm.
but I do it every night. With the type of work that I do, it's a very stressful job at the company. But also with that, I just have to always meditate every single night before I go to bed to have a good amount of sleep, along with when I wake up. I always meditate for a few minutes. Journaling is a huge part at my end of day. I still make time for it, maybe just 5, 10 minutes before I go to bed, just to reflect on what happens. Because what I realize is that if we don't take the time to journal, write things down, process what happened in that day and what we want out of the next day, life kind of goes by too fast. And then it's just a constant, rinse and repeat without thinking about what did I do the day before? What did I like from it? What would I have changed? Is there anything that I can do better? Without having that reflection, you just kind of go on airpilot mode, per se, or automatic mode per se, and you don't really think and reflect on what happened to even improve for the next day.
Yeah. I'm totally on board with that. And the more I do, the more of that, the more I take joy in the day that I've had, rather than what's the next thing I need to do, or what's the next thing that's going to bring excitement, or what do I have to do from a business perspective, or what am I doing tomorrow personally. It's like, that's great, and looking forwards is part and parcel of life, and you get to be excited about that type of stuff. But as another coach for Autonomy, him says, is like, sometimes you just got to smell the roses. You just got to look back and smell the roses on your day, your week, your journey, your progress. Because without that reflection, I feel like that autopilot isn't a very emotionally satisfying type of mentality. It's always autopilot to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. But you know, the the ability to drive emotion from your day and reflect on the positive things that have happened, maybe the negative things that you've learned from, things that you've done really well, some things that you took joy from, some things that you're excited about that happened today, creates this emotional satiation for your purpose in day. Everyone's working so hard to push forward towards some abominable goal, whether it's financial targets, whether it's the next promotion. But it's all the next, it's the next, it's the next. But we got to look after our mental health by being in the present, and feeling satiated from emotionally, and that often then leads to probably less looking forwards, less knee-jerk reactions, because you're actually content with your day and content with what you did, and that creates a better mental intelligence, emotional intelligence, which then breeds better clarity in the things that you can do, and the more that you can then, put yourself into these positions where you're having difficult times, but you're able to see the value in it and then still take action.
Definitely. Yep. Having gratitude end of day is something that is really important and something that I definitely do every day. And again, no day is perfect, right? No one's going to have perfect sunny rainbow days. It's how you make the most out of it. And if it's a bad day that you have, you learn from it, you take the experience, you reflect on it, and then the next day is a new day. So that's how you should treat it and, take it step by step. But gratitude is a huge aspect in my life that I definitely want others to definitely apply to their life because it will change your life a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally on board with that. And I think that's a really good place to leave the podcast. So thank you very much, Tiff, for coming on. I really appreciate it. Any final words of guidance for people looking to, go through a process like this, or, get some coaching? What would you say, top 3 tips to help them through this process?
Top 3 tips is if you really want something, and I would definitely take some time to think about what you really want out of this. If you want to achieve some type of physique or what it is, and being prepared for all the challenges that come before you you have a coaching session, right? I think that's really important. Putting yourself in a good mindset before you start, knowing that there will be hard times, there will be times when you give up, but if you really want it that bad, you will push through it. And 3, just enjoy the process. If you are working with Nathan, you're going to be in good hands, or any other coaches at Autonomy. I can speak that into existence. I have been through a lot of different coaches, and I actually was going to give up, but I want to give it one more shot. And I think God was with me for this. So really happy with what I was able to achieve and will continue achieving with Nathan's help. But those are my 3 biggest tips for anyone watching this podcast.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Tiff. And it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Super grateful and humble. Thank you so much for having me.